crypto wasn't supposed to be JP Morgan and BlackRock holding our asset for us. Crypto was supposed to give the power back to the people. Bitcoin can always be a store of value, can always be digital gold. And you see that BlackRock and all these institutions are involved now, but there are certain catalysts that could happen. There could be the biggest black swan event in financial history where quantum, right? Quantum could end up hacking Bitcoin in 2 years, or it could be 20 years. Zcash stands for zero cash. So if and when the day comes where there is zero cash, wouldn't it be ironic if we were using something called zero cash? To me, this isn't like a get rich quick thing. To me, this is like you're betting on the true future of finance, and you're betting on the technology that was Satoshi Nakamoto and many other cryptographers' original vision of what Bitcoin could have been and was supposed to be. Post your shielded address, and I think some people might give you a little donation because you're helping spread the message of ZEC, the message of privacy, the message of consent, and private unstoppable money.
So welcome on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
You became like the talk of the town recently because you were buying Zcash like, what, 5 years ago?
Yeah, I think I started in 2017, 2018. Yeah, even longer.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that was, Zcash was around $100, if I'm not wrong, around that time, 100, 200?
Yeah, I think I bought it at 150. I bought it at 200. I bought it at 50. I bought it at 30. I bought it at 20. So I was kind of always just buying it and adding to the collection.
So as long as the price was going down, you were just buying.
Yeah, I didn't even really care about price as much. I just knew that we were super early and that it was going to solve a really important problem. And then I had a lot of faith and confidence in the team and the technology and the people working on it. I had looked into it really deeply. There was a lot of lore there. There was a lot of skills there. And there was just so much potential, that I just figured, let me just keep at it. I kind of treated it as a savings account almost.
Nice. Yeah, so like now Zcash, as we record this podcast, is at $500 or $600, something like that. So
yeah,
you're sitting on the like 30x almost, if we take it to $20.
Yeah, we're definitely in the 10x territory, which is that's like the life-changing investments for most people. You hear everyone talk about the 10x. And that
is it life-changing for you?
All right. No, not really. I think it's more of like you can never get too high or too low on anything, right? One day you could be the hero, the next day you could be a villain. So I think it's just more, what I like is like people using the best product and the market waking up and the market healing and the market evolving. And it's more of like the feeling of like somewhat being right. Obviously the money's cool, but now I look at it like, okay, how can we invest more? How can we create, more businesses around this? How can we onboard more people? And how can we help like change their lives for the better, especially the people who have no banks, especially the people who live in really bad areas that have really inflationary currencies. Okay, Bitcoin broke the wall and the borders for that, but now Zcash is giving them the encryption and the privacy aspect, which is kind of like the icing on the cake, right?
Yes. Yeah. So explain in a one line for people, like what is Zcash and how is it different from Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrency?
Yeah, so Bitcoin is 21 mil supply and people can see your balance and your transaction history. And then Zcash is 21 million supply and no one can see your balance or transaction history unless you choose to show them. So you have your consent. So it's basically encrypted Bitcoin.
Yeah, so is it the technology is exactly the same behind when it comes to like the blockchain and like how things works, the mining?
Yeah, so it's a proof of work. So you got to mine it, and it's a hard fork of Bitcoin. So, it's basically uses zero knowledge proofs. And a zero knowledge proof, the scientists at MIT, they call it moon math. And a zero knowledge proof is I can prove to you I have what I say I have without revealing what I have. So it's like a perfect mathematical handshake. And Satoshi Nakamoto, in the early days in the Bitcoin forum in 2010, he actually talked about this. And he has an infamous post now that's been spread on X a lot that says, how can we add anonymity to Bitcoin? How can we make it more anonymous? And how can we use zero knowledge proofs in this case? And if we were able to use zero knowledge proofs, we would have a way better version of Bitcoin. So anyone who's been in the cryptography space and the engineering and math science space, you know that these developers and these guys are really humble, and they're really come from an approach of, I don't know, and let's solve it. So they're always trying to solve problems. And that was another thing that made me really bullish on Zcash, was when I looked at the team and kind of studied, where they were from and what schools they went to, or in some cases they were dropouts, but they were solving these problems that other cryptographers and mathematicians were never able to solve. And then they had these lofty goals of, hey, not only are we going to solve these problems, but we're going to scale this to give it to the world so the world can use it. So in many ways, it is similar to Bitcoin. They just went ahead and solved that privacy problem, which was a problem that bothered Satoshi Nakamoto himself.
Yeah. If you like tracking insiders in the stock market, well, you're going to love Stockchain, because it does the exact same thing, but in crypto and in the fabulous market of meme coins, where everything is about attention and insider movement. You can see directly the full level of accumulation and dumping that's been happening every day, depending of the coins. And on top of that, you have a live feed to know what are the insiders buying and selling, and even the accumulation and dumping live by the smart money. All of that into Stockchain. Stockchain.com. I'll link in the description as well, and enjoy the rest of this interview. Just for people to know, a hard fork is when basically they take the blockchain that is running and they say, all right, we make a copy and then we paste it here, and now we run it with a slightly or really different code. So that's means it's the same base. And now you did, I guess, it's in the past 5 years that you did all that research about Zcash. But what put you on wanting to learn about Zcash and why it was different when everyone was pretty much only talking about Bitcoin back then?
Yeah, so the first guy to put me on to Zcash was Gary the Numbers guy, Gary Grinberg. He's a numerologist, and he loved it because of the founding date, October 28th, 2016. And 28 is the number of wealth in numerology. So he said, hey, this is going to be I think he said, he was one of the first ones to say, this is going to replace Bitcoin. And he said, AOL got replaced by Google, MySpace got replaced by Facebook, and Bitcoin's going to get replaced by blank. So I joined his group. Because I'm into esoteric knowledge. I'm into numbers. I'm into astrology. I like to kind of look deep into things and reverse engineer them, see if there's any merit into it. And obviously humans are symbol mongers, right? And symbols hold energy. So there is some validity to numerology and astrology. And if you do reverse engineer it, you can come to a lot of deductions of certain things that happen. But that wasn't enough for me. That was kind of the starting point. And then before I wanted to make a substantial investment, I wanted to then go look into it deeper. And I happened to be at JP Morgan in Manhattan one day in 2017, and I saw an article on JP Morgan Zcash zero knowledge proofs. And I said, oh, okay, well, wait a minute. If JP Morgan is interested in this, they never lose. They don't lose. And they've got some very financial savvy people at their company. So I said, all right, Gary loves it. He's made some really big calls. JP Morgan likes it. We might have something here. And I've had, for whatever reason, never really gone deep into Bitcoin as far as investing in it in those
Mm,
early days. But now that I saw this product and this solution, to me, it just made total sense that the way Web 1 evolved from HTTP to HTTPS, when the internet first came out, people don't really realize it was open sourced. You see my computer, I see your computer. It was .mil, .edu, computer programming
yeah.
nerds. And it was that was fine because you had such small amount of people on the World Wide Web. Now, once the world came online, they said, well, wait a minute, this is safe. We can't have people reading our emails, and we can't have people snatching our credit card numbers and our birth dates and our social security numbers. So you came out with the HTTPS protocol. And it actually wasn't until around 2008 that the HTTPS protocol became the standard. And you actually had a few years there where was debates and arguments, and they said, well, no, this is illegal. This is going to be used for terrorism, the dark web. This is going to be used for drug trafficking. And history doesn't always repeat, but it often rhymes. And I see Web3 and the blockchain evolving the same exact way. And even though there's going to be a little bit of resistance, there already has been, and I'm sure there's more to come, eventually we're going to deduct that same net positive that we need encryption on the blockchain because it's a net positive for humanity. And we can't just have everyone and anyone out here looking at all of our sensitive info and sensitive transaction history and financial data, especially if this is supposed to be the future of finance, which
Yeah.
many of us think it will be now, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense I'm French, so I heard a lot of the kidnapping and stuff like that happen in France for people who own crypto.
Yeah.
And when you think about it, it's not that hard because you just need to have an intel, someone working in whatever crypto exchange, and they say, well, we know that this person living there sent that much to that address. So he owns that address probably. So give me $500 and I give you the details. So it's kind of dark when you think about it, like the ability of what people can do when they have those information. And
Yeah, and then people should just have consent,
yeah,
You're still going to have people on Twitter and Instagram showing off their Lamborghinis and Ferraris and showing off their mansions and their Rolex. And obviously, some of those people are wealthy and some of those people are faking it and projecting or renting it. But it's about consent. You should be allowed we should be allowed where no one knows what you have. And if you want, you can show a little bit, sure. But it's really about, people say, oh, well, no one cares about privacy. And it's like, well, then why do you wear clothing outside of your house? Why do you put blinds on your windows when you're sleeping? Why don't you just go ahead and share your entire bank statement for the last 3 months on Twitter publicly for us to all see? You would never do that. So people do care about privacy. They just need to kind of be educated, on why.
How do people can be able to give their consent on Zcash to show their balance? How does this work?
Viewing key. So Zcash has another thing I liked about Zcash was, they use a transparent address and they have a shielded address. So it's kind of like Venmo on public and private. It's optional privacy. Now they are evolving to way more privacy by default. Gemini just supported shielded withdrawals from the shielded address to either the Keystone wallet or the Zcash app, right? So that's a huge, and Gemini has been a big proponent of privacy for years now. But you can also, on many exchanges, every other exchange besides Gemini, you buy it with a transparent address. But now you have these DEXs popping up, like Maya and Near, and some of these other ones where you can just buy Zcash with a click of a button. You don't have to do your KYC, you don't have to do your AML, and you can buy shielded and put it straight in your shielded Zcash address. Now, there's the other thing they did that is really realistic and reasonable and that you have to do is a viewing key. All right. So what's a viewing key? A viewing key is, hey, auditor, or hey, third party that's trusted. If you ask for permission to see, then I can or cannot grant you permission, right? Which is just how a bank account or a house works, or the Fourth Amendment in America. You cannot have unreasonable searches and seizures. So in this instance, it's like, okay, you want to see what I have and you want to see my transactions? Here's the viewing key. Because I'm a private person, but I'm also a person who's doing everything by the book and I have nothing to hide. I just don't want to broadcast everything to anybody and everybody. So it's the best of both worlds, where some of these privacy coins, they're kind of gone way rogue and way beyond the pale of, hey, F the banks, F the government, we're going to take down the entire system and nobody can ever see what I'm doing, which is, cool to some people, but that's not just realistic or sustainable, right? There's a reason most people don't live in the forest by themselves and hunt for their own food. You need trusted middlemen, you need intermediaries, and most people want to live in like a law-abiding, functional society. So that's why Zcash has the best of both worlds.
That's why it became your favorite crypto in privacy. That's like the fact that there is this door that we can open if we want to.
Yeah, well, for me, it was like, okay, not only did these cypherpunk, gangster engineer, mathematicians, geniuses, most talented cryptographers in the world, not only did they solve this problem Satoshi Nakamoto publicly spoke about and said there'd be a diversion, but they're also coming to the powers that be and the adults in the room and educating them as to why this is a net positive, why this is a good thing for the world, rather than trying to hide from them and go against them. So I kind of saw like a nice balancing act and a best of both worlds scenario, where not only are these guys going to provide financial freedom and unstoppable private money, but they're going to be able to do it at scale for multiple reasons. And one of those reasons, besides such a talented team, was the fact that they were, playing nice in the sandbox and, giving everybody the best of both worlds, so to speak.
Before we go deep into this question, let me thank our sponsor of today, Paradex. Because if you go into trading, and that's one that I use, I started to use Paradex before they sponsor because I wanted to fund the airdrop. But perpetual trading should be decentralized. If you're going to trade Bitcoin, Ethereum, or whatever with some leverage, go with decentralized platform. Why? Because we need to fight for decentralization. So centralized exchange don't have the whole control over our economy. And what I love is that you can just invest with their own liquidity provider Vault. And I put 4K just a few days ago, and I'm already $13 up. So every day it's making me $5 to $10. As easy as that. It's small, but hey, at the end of the month, that's going to be more. And then with the compound interest, it's going to be more and more and more. So that's still very early. Plus I'm farming the airdrop because Paradex is backed by Paradigm, which is the biggest liquidity provider in the market. They work with every institution, every big funds. So imagine when people start to understand that, what will happen to Paradex, and if they launch their token, because I'm farming the airdrop, what will happen with that? Well, we will know surely. So if you want to maximize your points and get a discount, use the code HANDSOME, and then there will be a link in the description as well, so you don't have to Google and to get into some scams. And you can start farming. That's very interesting. You talked about before the analogy with AOL and Google, which is one that is often described in many areas. How do you think that plays out when you have such a network effect with money? And then also why it didn't happen earlier, when I think like when AOL was created and was famous compared to when Google was there, it's probably around 10 years. I don't remember exactly the dates, but I feel like why is it slower now on Bitcoin than it was for this? If you think that Bitcoin is going to get replaced or at least challenged by Zcash.
Yeah, so I think there's a few reasons. One, if you compare the dot-com bubble, first of all, we're analogy to the web World Wide Web takeoff, we're in about the year 1997 right now, as far as usership. There's about 7% of the world is actually using crypto and investing in crypto. So that's about 1997. And everybody knows that in 1999, we had this .com bubble. So if you look and compare history and do your history, you see that, hold on one second here. Okay, you guys can hear me. You can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So you had Priceline.com, Priceline Negotiator, Pets.com. You had all these crazy websites. And hold on one second. Okay. Okay, here. You had all these crazy websites at these extreme valuations, right? And it was the Amazon that no one was even investing in. No one thought was going to do anything. They were telling him that was a stupid idea. Amazon wasn't profitable to around 10 years later, right? Now, the difference this time around is you didn't have a huge chunk of retail investing in Pets.com, investing in Priceline Negotiator. You didn't have people investing in HTTP protocol. Part of the reason Zcash, in my opinion, is going to become so number go up big and mass adopted is not because of the popularity, because it will be considered the standard, because we're going to have to demand encryption on chain for the same reason we use HTTPS online. Now, Bitcoin has the Lindy effect on the crypto space as the first mover and the most popular. Zcash has the Lindy effect as far as privacy coins, 9 years old. It just went through its second halving about a year ago. So it's on the same 4-year halving schedule as Bitcoin, which is another reason we kind of knew that it was about to get really bullish. But you also have where Bitcoin is ran by charity. Bitcoin doesn't have a centralized thing. That's the good thing about it. But it also doesn't have a centralized organization. That's kind of the bad thing about it. You have what I think is the biggest sunken cost fallacy of all time, where what's a sunken cost fallacy? It's basically when people are pot committed, okay, and they're betting on the beta test run, they're betting on the prototype, and it's it's the tendency to continue this endeavor, a project, a relationship, because you've previously invested resources, time, money, effort, even when it's clear that stopping and pivoting and going to a better option is the better choice, right? So people do sunken cost fallacies all the time. A bad job, right? They stay at a job they hate because they've spent so many years there and they have whatever. A bad movie, right? You're like, oh, eventually this might get better, or you're already you started. Business projects, personal relationships, and investments, right? Now, in this case, holding on to Bitcoin has been extremely lucrative. So how could you tell anybody that they're making a bad investment, if they're up 1,000%? So it's going to be a lot more, I wouldn't say more painful, but it's going to take more time to evolve. But now in live time, you're seeing people are actively swapping Bitcoin into Zcash. And Naval did that really infamous tweet now where he said Bitcoin is a hedge against fiat and Zcash is a hedge against Bitcoin, right? So you're seeing people start to hedge their bets with what could be, the alpha. This could replace the prototype. Now, Bitcoin can always be a store of value, can always be digital gold. And you see that BlackRock and all these institutions are involved now. So it's going to be very hard. But there are certain catalysts that could happen. There could be the biggest black swan event in financial history where quantum, right? Quantum could end up hacking Bitcoin in 2 years, or it could be 20 years. There's arguments on both sides. And Zcash isn't fully quantum resistant yet, but the shielded pool, holding your ZEC in a shielded pool, is one of the most quantum resistant ways you can hold your crypto today. And then you have some catalysts where people could get doxxed, people's whole transaction history, people's whole balance. AI is getting better by the day, and Nansen, addressable, Arkham intelligence. Arkham intelligence is basically broadcasting to the entire world what most people's holdings are and what their transaction history is. And now, because of this, a lot of people are opting to have institutionals hold their BTC, which goes totally against the ethos of what crypto is supposed to be, right? Crypto wasn't supposed to be JP Morgan and BlackRock holding our asset for us. Crypto was supposed to give the power back to the people. So the writing's on the wall. There's a lot of bright minds now saying the same thing. And to be a good investor, you got to be super careful who you're listening to, who you're watching, and who you're learning from. And I think with Bitcoin and the Bitcoin Maxi community, to me, a Bitcoin Maxi is somebody who loves Zcash, because a Bitcoin Maxi is somebody who learned Bitcoin so much like the back of their hand that they actually know the flaws of it and know there's going to be a better product on the horizon. Where most Bitcoin Maxis who come on Twitter and the cheerleaders and the promoters, they're real estate investors, they're tech billionaires, they're celebrities. What do these people really know about cryptography besides being good marketers? Now, the cryptographers and the math scientists and the engineers and, these genius mathematicians, if you kind of go into the rooms they're speaking in, they have a totally different ethos and a totally different conversation of how can we make this the best thing possible and what is the best tech. So that's who I would kind of early on, I don't want to listen to the color commentator. I don't want to listen to Stephen A. Smith or Colin Cowherd. I want to go to Michael Jordan and LeBron James and see what they're working on, what their game's about, and what they think is coming next. And now as the market evolves and heals and people get away from these memes and NFTs and people start shielding their wealth, they're going to realize, okay, maybe this is the future of finance, right? And it takes a special type of mind and intelligence to admit that maybe they are in a bad relationship and should evolve into a better one, or maybe they're in a betting on now. That kind of point where I last said hits it on the head, because as of right now, they're not in a bad relationship financially, right? If they've invested in Bitcoin, they've done pretty well. But if they've come in the past few months, Bitcoin's been hovering at 100K. So for Bitcoin to 10X, it's got to go to 1 million, right? That's a very lofty goal. And what we were saying is for Zcash to 10X, it only had to go to 500, and it actually had been there before. So I think Bitcoin can still go to 170, 160, 150,000 before it tops in this next market. But I just don't know if when it goes down after that, if it's ever going to be able to rebound and go hit that $1 million mark, because the cat's out of the bag that it is a severely flawed technology. And I don't see that cat going back in the bag. I just see more and more people talking about it. I see AI exposing it more, and I see us evolving into encryption and privacy on chain. And I think for people out there listening, if you are investing in a public ledger, if you're working on a public ledger, you got to take a serious look in the mirror and ask yourself, like, where is this thing going in 5 to 10 years? And am I wasting my money and wasting my time? Now, for the past 5, 6, 10 years, we've had to play with the public ledgers because that's kind of all we had, and it was a fun run. But just how the web evolved, Web 1, Web 3 evolved the same way. And now it's time to start thinking about working with projects like that, because with NFTs, they'll give you an example. The first iteration of NFTs were cartoon characters on a public ledger where you could see all my holdings and, you could see when I sold or when I traded. Now, the next iterations of NFTs will be like digital receipts on chain, right? So an NFT to own the title of your home, an NFT to own a title of a car, an NFT to have real financial and data use cases for a citizen where that can never be, on a public chain. It could be, but you're going to want it, kind of how people buy a house and they use a trust. Right? Because when you buy a house, it's public record. So most people choose to buy a house with a trust, or they homestead it. And just how people are going to signal to talk in private, just how people are going to Brave browser to browse in private. What we were saying and what I was saying was like, well, isn't finances way more important? Aren't we going to want to do our financing in private? So Zcash is that signal in that Brave browser. In fact, Brave browser implemented Zec, I think a few years ago. So hope that answers that question.
Yeah, it is. I'm wondering because I saw a lot on the timeline conversation about Monero and saying that, oh, this crypto or that crypto is more private. And I'm wondering if we listen to the cyberpunk, like, are they just want like more encryption for more encryption? Like, where does it goes?
So first and foremost, if you look at the developer community, the Monero devs and the Zcash devs, these people get along, right? These guys are on the same. It's something called healthy competition. May the best product won. I've seen Monero say, hey, how can we use that tech for us to make us better? And I've seen Zcash devs talk to Monero devs and bounce ideas off one another. It's kind of only the community members who aren't top cryptographers that are like in a cafeteria food fight and social media, just like tribalism, throwing stuff at each other. For me, Monero uses ring signatures and Zcash uses zero knowledge proofs. And zero knowledge proofs are superior to ring signatures, and all the top cryptographers and mathematicians will agree with this. Now, what a lot of people spread FUD about Zcash is they say it's not truly private because it has a transparent address, and they say Monero is private by default. But I kind of touched on that earlier where, okay, Monero is private on default, but it is having big time issues getting on exchanges. And it's also having issues with the ring signatures because you're going to leak some data and it's not perfect. It's not as close to perfection as what zero knowledge proofs and Zcash are working on. So I would rather invest in, and you're seeing now, which is really interesting to me, is a lot of these privacy coins are going up because investors are spreading their bets. And some of these techs, you know, if you talk to the cryptographer community, you see that some of these techs aren't even truly private, right? That people are just betting on them because they have a label and they're not really looking into them that deep at all. So, you know, I choose Zcash because of the team, because of the superior tech, because of a little bit of that balancing act where they've been able to recruit some of the top talent in the world. And because, you know, even the Monero developers will agree that the tech is superior.
That's an interesting point. Yeah, you talked before about like how Zcash is actually, is it a company then that runs it compared to Bitcoin where it's just a group of people that if they agree there's something running, but like how is Zcash managed?
Yeah, so there's no company running Zcash, but they do have Electric Coin Company, and Electric Coin Company, or ECC, is based in Boulder, Colorado, right? And then you have the Zcash Foundation, and I believe in 2020, Electric Coin Company, they're a nonprofit 501c3, right? And then you have the Zcash Foundation, and then you have Zcash Community Grants, where I think it is really important for the whole community to hear because you can actually get grants to build on top of Zcash. So you can go to z.cash and see that website, or you can go to Electric Coin Company and see that website, and you can kind of see like the difference. You know, you could call the Electric Coin Company is kind of like the, you know, they're like a three-headed monster is what I like to call them, you know, where they're able to do, you know, you need an organization, you need a scoreboard, you need people getting rewarded for their work. Despite just like the reward of helping humanity. But where I saw with Bitcoin ran by charity and the developer community never on the same page and always arguing in public, the Zcash community and the ECC and the Zcash Foundation, I saw a little bit more of organization and checks and balances. And, I'm not the only one saying this, the top talent in the room working on the project. If you Google a guy named Sean Bowe, who solved one of the most hard cryptography problems in the last 10 years. He's like a college dropout. Ian Myers, Daria, Zuko Wilcox, one of the founders of Zcash. He's not only is he the first person to ever write a blog post about Bitcoin, he's one of the only people Satoshi Nakamoto ever mentioned by name, right? So, it's because of this community, it's because of this network effect, it's because of this ecosystem that they've been able to, make such progress in the last year here, and that we've really reached a tipping point. And now it's on us to adopt it and kind of spread and educate it of like, why is privacy so important, right? Privacy gives you the power to choose whom and with whom you share your info. And privacy is essential for freedom. It's essential for security, for dignity, right? It isn't about shutting out everyone and everything. It isn't about going into a vault of darkness and never being seen again. It's about safety, control, and the right to grant access, and it's a simple human right that if we do not get this right, we're going to be in an Orwellian nightmare,
But if there's such organization, so even if it's split between three different organizations for Zcash, doesn't it constitute a risk where a country could be like, okay, like if I know that you're working on this, you're working on that, like you get pressure, or we try to make you push an update?
No, well, that's the whole thing, right? It's like 100% centralization will never work, right? 100% decentralization will never work. And there's a reason it went from the Roman Empire to the Dark Ages pretty quick. And there's a reason a lot of us didn't invest in Bitcoin in 2011 and 2010. It's because it was very hard to. And once you bring on intermediaries and trusted third parties, you start to see mass adoption and you start to see number go up. And it's hard enough for us crypto savvy people. You see crypto savvy people getting hacked or losing wallets or getting locked out all the time. So when you bring a bunch of normies and the masses on and aunts and uncles and grandparents, this thing's going to have a seamless, perfect UX, and there's going to have to be trusted middlemen. Now, on the other side of the coin, with these new DEXs popping up, with the Zashi wallet, with the shielded addresses, you can be out in the wild, wild west by yourself and hold your private unstoppable money, totally decentralized. So once again, for me, it was always balance, and it was always, equality of the best of both worlds, right? Mm-hmm. For the same reason, like the analogy I used before is like, most people are not living in the forest by themselves. Most people are not walking cross country. They're flying cross country. And most people are not swimming across the river. They're taking a bridge, and that's just the way us humans work. Some countries do have a problem with Zcash. I think South Korea might be one of them, and a few others. Well, then now it's time to come to those countries. Like we just saw that EU is going to ban privacy coins by 2027, which could be a rumor and not real. But to me, that means, oh, these people haven't looked into it. Like they don't realize this. And then to me, I see that and say, oh, this is going to be just like HTTPS, where they said no at first, and then fast forward 20 years and you have to use it,
But then how does Zcash make money? How does those three organizations live? Like where's the money from?
Yeah, so for the first 4 years, they had the founders reward, which a lot of people hated, and there was a lot of FUD around it. It was another thing that I actually liked, where 20% was going back to the devs and back to the team to build a better product and to finance work, to help the ecosystem. So if you go to ECC and Zcash and, and read through some of that stuff and join the community rather than just like spreading fun online, you can actually participate and help. And that's why I joined the Zcash community advisory panel, because I said, oh, well, people are saying this is FUD, but you can actually kind of see like what they're working on and how they're working on it and how this ecosystem works and where these finances are actually going. So they did this brilliant thing that I thought was awesome, which is this founders reward. And a lot of people have trust issues. So certain people hated the founders reward because they looked at it like they were just getting robbed, right? I looked at it like, oh, you guys are going to take money and make yourself better. Great, because I'm investing in you and investing in this project, and I want it to be the best possible product there is. And that's what we're kind of seeing now. We know it, others know it, and now the world's about to realize it. You know, I think a lot of these people who are investing in Zcash in the last month, they see the number go up, so they're FOMOing in, and a lot of them haven't even really got a chance to see how brilliant the minds are, what top geniuses are actually working on this project. And that's why I think we have so much higher to go, because we're going to see the truth come out of what the best product really is, you know?
Yeah. So like those 20%, is it like at the creation, they got 20% of the coins, or how do they take those 20% or otherwise?
No, it was basically from the miners' rewards.
So
20%.
Okay, on each miners' rewards, 20% of the block goes to it. Okay. I think, isn't it?
Correct.
There was a halving recently of the Zcash prediction, because it follows the same pattern as Bitcoin, right? Is it every 4 years or a bit more often, or what is it like?
Yeah, so it's the same halving schedule as Bitcoin, which another thing I loved, every 4 years. And then when you look at the Bitcoin second halving, it went from $800 a coin to $20,000 a coin, right? So we just went through the second halving with Zcash, and we've gone from $50 a coin to now around 500, 600, 700, depending on the day. I think we're in the 550 range right now. So the question is, you know, and that was the thing I was looking forward to for a few years, where I said to myself, okay, once we get through this second halving, the miners are going to have way less downward selling pressure, and the inflationary bug's going to be gone, and the number's going to be more likely to go up because of that as well.
That's interesting. So then, okay, now it's only the second, and then Bitcoin is a bit further. So like how many Zcash are they printing now with the mining reward?
Yeah, so I think there's we got to look it up. I think there's about 5 million in the shielded pool, and I think 16 million. And, you know, same kind of schedule as Bitcoin, where it's going to take, you know, utmost years to get the. So if you Google it real quick, we can get that exact number. I don't want to misquote it, and I just had to put my
I to be fair, I don't even know now like how many Bitcoin get printed.
Yeah, there's only going to ever be 21 million Zach, just how there's only going to ever be 21 million Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And I think
so it's going to have the next halving in 2028, and that's going to reduce, like the block reward now is at 1.56 to 0.78. So that's going to be a big one again. And okay.
That's why people are saying like, hey, what's the next Zcash? I'm like, well, Zcash is the next Zcash, and we're just getting started here. So people have so much PTSD from the meme coin season of just rotating profits into the next shiny object or the next flavor of the week. And I'm like, hey, guys, spend a few hours actually looking into this, and you'll realize like there's another halving coming up in 2028. And, you know, you might want to start dollar cost averaging. That's what I did over the years. You know, I just bought a little bit every week or every month or when I could, no matter what the price was. I just said, hey, I'm going to put a certain percentage of my paychecks or my deal flow into this. And that's why I'm going to continue doing the same thing, you know, and Now with RIA and Near Protocol and some of these other dexes, you actually have an opportunity where people are staking their ZEC and lending their ZEC and getting a yield from it. So that's kind of the way that I always looked at it too. Whereas like, there's going to come a day where maybe I never even have to sell any Zcash and I can just stake it or yield it or borrow against it.
Yeah.
And what a beautiful thing that is.
I mean, these there for Bitcoin is pretty low. Like if you get 2% on your Bitcoin is rare, and that's it's crazy when you think about it, because most crypto give you like 5-10% just from staking different places. I don't know why Bitcoin has like still like super low reward from it. So I don't know if Zcash gonna have more, but if it has more, that probably is gonna attract more people to it, because there's kind of beauty in it, like to be able to do this. When do you think we're gonna have the first meme coin on Zcash?
That's a great question. I think people are working on that. There's some debate going on. I think the question is, when are we going to first have the first NFTs or meme coins that are basically built on a private ledger that are using zero knowledge proofs or privacy? If you type in ZSAs, shielded assets, there is a debate, and it looks like they're a few years out from even doing that. And I think there's some better priorities right now, like scaling private unstoppable money to the masses first, before we kind of start worrying about those iterations and those cartoon characters and NFTs. But I look at it like, who is going to create the NFTs that are encrypted using zero knowledge proof? Because then it's kind of like putting a house in a trust.
Yeah.
Right. We're going to be able to have a digital receipt and an encrypted digital receipt. So who is building that? I would love to know. And can that be built on top of Zcash?
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, see, it's still in development.
The shielded assets. Yeah, that could be the thing. Well, now the question is like Bitcoin, we say that the technology as the layer one is not so convenient for fast transactions. So that's why they're building the Lightning. So I wonder if Lightning is going to work on Zcash as well, because Lightning can also provide a bit more privacy.
Yeah, it's just not real enough. You need an L1. It's like going into Times Square naked, everyone seeing your private parts, and then putting clothes on after the fact, right? You're leaking data, but also it's not sustainable and compliant, because you can't ask normal folks to use an L2.
Yeah.
You can't ask normal folks to use a workaround.
Yeah.
And even us non-normal folks, we want it seamless. We want the UX perfect. We want it nice and easy and clean. We don't want to be bothered, We want to choose to be lazy and just have it work for us.
We don't. We want it simple.
And if you type in Tachyon, Tachyon, Tachyon Zcash, and you'll see what they're working on to scale to billions of users, right? Because that's another flaw with a lot of these projects in Bitcoin, is they're too old, they're too slow, they're not fungible. If the world adopted Bitcoin right now, the chain would slow to a halt and the fees would be astronomical. Yeah, so this is a major, major announcement in the cryptocurrency world.
Okay.
Yeah.
Shielded transaction, why providing? Okay. Synchronized with a blockchain. I will dig into that. Interesting.
Yeah.
Nice.
And with Tachyon, you're starting to get into like the big brain math, science, cryptography world, and like I'm not even going to pretend to know.
I'm already having a headache.
That I understand it. So like what I do is like, every few days I just watch a little bit on it, or I just read a little bit on it, and guess what? In like 6 months, I'll kind of know what it is and how it works, and I'll be able to talk about it more than most people. but then it's like, how do I make this, explain it to like an elementary school person? And I'll probably put that very prompt into Grok or ChatGPT of,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
because what's so important, and this is one of the things that President Trump does so well, is dumbing it down and speaking in quick sound bites that are very digestible, where most of the masses can understand why it's a good thing,
Yeah.
right? And the more, and it's enough people already. Most people don't understand money, and most people don't understand computers.
Yeah.
And with cryptocurrency, you combine both of them into one. You know, so anyone out here claiming they're an expert, it's like, even the experts don't claim they're experts, man.
That's
Like
true.
even the experts are like,
Yeah. That's true. That's true.
so it's like, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert because I follow the experts and like they talk in a completely different language than you guys. And I remember like in the 3 4 years ago, I remember Vitalik Buterin in an interview kind of hinting to like, Ethereum could die one day. And like he would be fine with that. And he would understand that like a better technology came or this or that. And I was like, here's one of the founders. It's almost like an artist, right? Like an artist is always working on a piece and always doing a new project and always evolving and like perfecting their craft. And it was more the maxis and the community members who are like total tribalists who are like, no, nothing's better than my thing and only my thing. That's why I think like guys like Michael Saylor are really dangerous, because it's like you're a tech billionaire or multimillionaire, but you are speaking so differently than like the experts of the field, right? You're telling people to mortgage your house on this thing. You're telling people to only buy this thing. You're telling people to go all in on this thing. And meanwhile, the founder disappeared. The founder walked away. The founder said, hey, I'm going to work on other things. And the founder literally in writing said, I think there's going to be way better versions of this. And especially if we use zero knowledge proofs, that'll be a better version. So it's like, who are we listening to? Who are you listening to? And be careful as an investor. And you might be wrong short term, but you might be really right long term. And that's where, keep it simple.
Yeah.
With health, right? You can eat the same thing every day for 60 years and never get sick and always be healthy, and your liver is smiling and your organs are smiling because you just haven't given your organs and body too much workload. You haven't confused them. Same thing with investing. You can literally buy the same thing every month for 20 years and outperform literally the rest of the market if what you're betting on is efficient, is a great tech with a great team, and continues to evolve and scale and make more profit. Where if you got a bunch of tabs open, if you're constantly rotating your bags, and the market is healing from this meme season where, someone did a post the other day that pump fun ruined the cryptocurrency market. And I'm like, well, pump fun didn't ruin crypto. Pump fun just expedited the inevitable, right? Pump Fund made it clear that like this is just a bunch of freaking trash that really amounts to nothing, and we're really just in buying popularity contests, flavor of the weeks of like what large accounts are promoting something, and that's never going to scale or work long term.
Yes, pump is just a way that is easier and at the beginning more fair to launch a meme coin or a coin for anyone. And I was like really like, I think like crypto a perfect tool to capture attention and measure attention. So then that's the same. We see Zcash value goes up because the attention around Zcash goes up, because also the attention around privacy goes up. Like if you came to me 10 years ago and say like, hey, you should install Brave browser, like more like 15 years ago, it didn't even exist, because there was like, that's like the problems that we have now with the interconnection with everything. And then that globalization of like internet, and then that open ledger that makes it like, okay, now everyone can see, and now with the tooling it's become easier to find. Before, people thought that Bitcoin was private, because the common knowledge would be like, oh, it's used for drugs, and that mean people used it back then, right, on Silk Road, because they thought like, oh, people don't know who I am, I can buy in this. Well, actually no, because if there's a one touch point where you gave your identity, then we can all track it back. You mentioned actually Donald Trump, and then I saw on your Twitter profile that you say your previous adversary to Potters. So tell me more about that. Advisory, sorry.
Yeah, so I was in the public speaking and teleprompting and media business in New York City for about 15 years. And July 2016 had the fortunate honor and privilege to start working for the Trump campaign. I think he had like a 1% chance to win at the time. And then he ended up winning, shocking the world. So ended up then getting lucky where getting invited to the White House to work with him, learned so much, met so many amazing people. And then 2020 came back to New York, kind of, lost all my clients and no one wanted to speak to me. And then worked on the campaign the last 2 years, helping them secure the victory. And then this time around, I'm a way different man and a way different person. And luckily I made a few good investments and a few entrepreneurial decisions, Zcash being one of them, where I said, hey, already been there, already know everybody. I would love to volunteer and help out in the future. But right now I'm kind of just going to work on the entrepreneurial stuff, the consulting, the advising, the investing, traveling the world, trying things out and helping solve problems. But yeah, I did get to work for President Trump. Before that, I had worked for Clinton. I had done some jobs with Obama. I had even worked with George Bush Jr. I had worked at the United Nations. The teleprompting world leads you in New York City. You end up working with the best of the best, CEOs, celebrities, banks, politicians. One day I would be in Brooklyn on a commercial set, and the next day I would be at Goldman Sachs with the CEO working on like an internal video. So I was able to rub elbows and shake hands with a lot of powerful, wealthy people, and then, evolved and matured as a man and said, okay, this was fun, but I'm going to go way beyond like a staff level. I want to get into the entrepreneurial journey, which were most principals I was meeting. Let me emulate what they're doing. Mm-hmm. Let me figure out how they became wealthy, how they, how their journey. So yeah,
nice.
It was a great time in history.
You also got an Emmy award,
and I got to
right?
experience it. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, that was part of my teleprompting and media journey. I got an Emmy Award at Major League Baseball Network.
Wow.
In 2012. We were the best technical team, and they did the nice thing of buying us the actual award. A lot of times if you win an Emmy, they don't buy the award for you. So back at my house in New York, I have the award sitting on the piano. And the other day, some knucklehead said that I was lying about my Emmy Award. I'm like, why would I lie about that? And it's not even like that cool of a thing. And I won it at like a sports network, Major League Baseball, which I actually lost that job because I did not get vaccinated for COVID. So.
Okay, that's interesting. What is a teleprompting job actually? Yeah. It's like the teleprompter where they read all the lines, right? Like under the camera?
Yeah. Exactly. So you could be like a PA level on a live news show, or you could be like scrolling the inaugurational address for the president. And we were the first non-military to scroll the inaugurational address in U.S. history. So that was a big.
Also, you manually scroll as they speak, like to match exactly where they are. Yeah. Okay. Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. And what teleprompting does is you combine the tech world with the people person world. So some people are really good at the tech, not good with people. Other operators are really good with people, but they might not be the best tech savvy. So you got to really do your best to combine both worlds, because not only are you doing this technically complicated thing, somewhat, but you're also in a high stakes environment working with usually very wealthy and powerful people on like very important messaging and remarks and speeches that they're giving many times to the entire world, or you know, so it could be really silly stuff where you're in a studio to tape and you could do 100 takes, or it could be high stakes, where you're at the United Nations giving an address to the world.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a crash course in media, and it was really once in a lifetime experience and a priceless experience. And for me, it was a lot of fun. People would ask me for jobs, and I would get them a job, and they'd be like, I don't know how you do this. I can't do this. I'm out, because it would be too nerve wracking for them.
Yeah, it is. Like, you can't fuck this shit up. Like, you gotta be, ready. Wow. What brought you to that? That's quite a niche.
Yeah, exactly. I was playing baseball in college, and one summer, for all the athletes out there, you sacrifice a lot. And I kind of just got tired of always playing baseball and never being able to go hang with my friends and never being able to make money. So one summer, my friend Garrett Cordero, he worked at NBA TV, and we were playing basketball at the park, and he brought me to NBA TV. And the production manager lady goes, "Hey, do you do this too?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do this." And she was like, "Do you want a job?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'll take a job." And my friend Garrett's like, "What do you mean? You've never done this before?" I'm like, "No, I'll be able to learn it really quick." So next thing you know, I was working on live TV. Never done it before. I went in a day before, spent the whole day with him, learned it, and just faked it till I made it. And then ended up getting requested on like the top show. And then they moved to Atlanta, Georgia, and didn't invite me. And then I met someone there who was roommates with someone who worked at the top company, VIP Prompting. They are the top teleprompting company in New York City for like 50 years. So immediately just joined them. And then next thing you know, I went from watching basketball games every night and doing live TV with basketball to pretty much anyone and everyone. Award shows, charity dinners, banks, commercials, you name it, man. We were in the room with everyone.
That's really cool. Wow.
And I kind of fell in.
So you took,
I fell into it accidentally.
Yeah, you took a bet on yourself and then it worked out. It's beautiful.
It worked out. And then I just kept showing up, putting a custom suit and a pocket square on, being a people person, working hard, never saying no, showing up 7 days a week. And I somehow parlayed it into being a special assistant to the president with top secret clearance.
That's amazing. Well, congrats, man. Do you have anything to wrap it up around Zcash or what you're looking at next so people can continue further research?
Yeah, I think to wrap it up, download that Zashi. Don't just be one of these spectators who are talking shit in the comments and replies. Kick the tires, look under the hood, download the Zashi wallet. You can even post your shielded address on Twitter. I'll retweet it for you maybe, or I'll just reply to it. And people will send you, Zec also has this shielded memo field where you could send these shielded love notes. Basically, it has a memo field where you could send notes to people. So you could literally send me a penny of Zec and write me the most private encrypted message, and try it out. Don't knock it until you try it, and really think about it right now as a hedge to Bitcoin. Think about it as the blockchain evolves, it's going to go encryption, and join the community and do some research. And before you buy some meme coin with some mysterious dev and some anonymous founder, take a look at Zcash, the electric coin company, the Zcash Foundation, study the lore, see that the people working on it are some of the brightest minds in the space. And then when you make that investment, you can actually go to sleep at night comfortably and not worry about it all being gone when you wake up in the morning. You know, it might be down 50%, it might be up 50%, but at the end of the day, I looked at it like a savings account where I'm going to continue to just put some money into it every week or every month, where it can just grow and I can have private unstoppable money. And listen, it stands for zero cash. Zcash stands for zero cash. So if and when the day comes where there is zero cash, wouldn't it be ironic if we were using something called zero cash? And if I send you Zec, it's between me and you. It's literally like me handing you $100 bill in your pocket. Whereas if I send you Bitcoin, it's broadcasted to the entire Explorer, where anyone and everyone can see that happened. You know, that's the good thing about it. That's the bad thing about it. So
I will, I will post my shielded address then and see how it goes.
Yeah. When you post this stream, post your shielded address. And I think some people might give you a little donation because you're helping spread the message of Zec, the message of privacy, the message of consent and private unstoppable money. And like, this is cool and this is normal and this is okay. And like, you don't have to be scared. You don't have to be worried that you're going to get banned, for the same reason that you don't have to be worried that you're allowed to lock your door, that you're allowed to have a bank account. You know, this is normal stuff, and you might not have anything to hide, but you just still might want to have consent over who can see what's going on. And I know I do. And there's definitely a world for both.
Yeah.
You know,
that's amazing. Yeah. I don't know. I never received donations, so that would be a weird one for me, but let's try it. It was really a pleasure, honestly, to have you here. Thank you so much for sharing all this and to have really articulated thoughts. Thank you. You must have spent a lot of time trying to explain to people. Appreciate that.
Well, you know what it is, man. Like 7 years now, I've been investing and speculating and buying and looking, and I spent a lot of time like a ADHD maniac just on Twitter reading all the posts. You know, at least once a day, I would search Zcash and Zec. Let me see what everyone's saying. So not only was I able to, and by the way, and you know, I remember dark days in 2017 where like there was 10 posts a day and they were all negative. You know, I'm definitely exaggerating, but because I've been doing that like a maniac, I've been able to meet everyone and learn and study, and like I'm not even anywhere near well versed as a lot of these people, but I'm at least able to carry on a conversation and educate and kind of explain my thesis and other people's thesis of like, you know, a 10x is great, a 15x is great, but private unstoppable money, encrypted Bitcoin for billions at scale is better than anything, right? Because I think what you're going to see now is that mathematical equation and tokenomics of 21 mil supply. Personally, I think Zcash can end up going way, way higher than Bitcoin ever goes because of that.
Yeah, there's the grayscale thesis that you have pinned on your Twitter, where it's Zcash at 60K, something like that. That's like,
yeah.
All right. Let's see how it plays.
Hey, if you miss Bitcoin's run from $500 to 100,000, this could be your second chance. And if you can learn what we learned from that Bitcoin run and you study that chart, you know, Bitcoin would top and then like correct 70% down after, you know, and there's that famous Yogi Berra quote of deja vu all over again, where it seems just like 2013, the way people were hating on Bitcoin, the same FUD is happening with Zcash. And, you know, for the younger guys in the room who were in middle school or high school then, like, go back and kind of study some of this and see, like, history is repeating all over again. And it's very fascinating to watch.
I'm going to check that. Yeah, if when 2013, so not even the 2017 bull run. Well, that means we're pretty early then.
I think we're really early. I think it's time to zoom out. It's time to be patient. Zcash is up 1,300% on the year. It went to 700, came back down to 500, and people are like, "It's done. It's crashed. See that? It's over."
Yeah, I love it.
And I'm like, guys, like, get a
I
grip.
posted a video when Zcash was around 600, and they're like, "You see, now it's down." I said, "Well, first after the video, we went to 720, but also don't remember 2 weeks ago, I posted a video where he was at 200. So it's like, I can't help you more than that." It's like, what?
You know, I always told people about Zcash, and I always educated people, but starting about 3 months ago, I really started putting the pedal to the metal because I could kind of just sense it. You know, after being in the community for so long, I saw a tipping point coming. I knew the halving schedule. Once I started to see Oxmert and Onsum, and then once that Naval tweet happened, you know, I was like, I kind of really started doubling down on telling my people, like, you better invest. And like, some of my people got in at like 100, 150, 200. And some people now are getting in at 400 and 500. And I'm just saying, listen, this is and always was be like a 5 to 10 year thing for me. This is a long-term play. It's going to go up. It's going to go down. I'm going to add when it goes down, and like just zoom out and realize, like, to me, this isn't like a get rich quick thing. To me, this is like you're betting on the true future of finance, and you're betting on the technology that was Satoshi Nakamoto and many other cryptographers' original vision of what Bitcoin could have been and was supposed to be. And to me, what's better than that, right? Why would I invest on the beta test run prototype that the smartest people in the world admittedly say is a failure? Hard to digest and swallow that, because in many ways it's not a failure. It's massively. This is why this is so confusing, right? How could you call Bitcoin a failure when it's the best performing asset known to man?
Yeah.
You know, this is the kind of upside down world we could find ourselves in sometime. And this is why I've always been confident and stuck to my guns, because I'm like, I know we're not wrong.
Yeah.
You know, but a lot can change and a lot can humble a person. So I don't want to be disrespectful to Bitcoin or Bitcoin maxis either, because it is the first mover. It is the OG. Bitcoin walked so Zcash could run.
Beautiful. I think that's the sentence we're gonna end on.